First, a word about the Field and Garden Podcast. The Field and Garden Podcast is a part of the Gardener's Workshop. The Gardener's Workshop has been telling the stories and how-tos of growing, selling, and helping others to pursue their flower-growing dreams for over 25 years. What began as one gardening enthusiast sharing her passion has grown into so much more. Over at thegardenersworkshop.com, find in print with our blogs and books and through our podcasts and videos and courses, and we have a shop full of the same tools, seeds, and supplies that you hear mentioned on our podcast. You can connect with all of these resources over at thegardenersworkshop.com. I hope you'll take some time to explore all we have for you. Welcome to the Field and Garden Podcast.
Good morning. Do not attempt to adjust your dials. You are on the right account. I'm not Lisa Ziegler. I'm Lenny. This is Steve. We're here to do a takeover this morning. Coming to you live. Hi, we'll let Steve go. Nice to see you all. So I'm Lenny Larkin. I have been asked to come do a takeover this morning, which is super fun for me. So this is Ask a Flower Farmer. You can ask anything you want. I am an expert in business stuff. So strategy for your farm business, growing your farm, shrinking your farm, thinking about sales and thinking about profit. I'm here in Oregon on my small farm, B-Side Farm. I also have Flower Farming for Profit, which is the name of my first book that came out this year. It's also the name of my education business that I finally teased apart from B-Side Farm. And I do coaching with flower farmers and teach courses and all sorts of education stuff, grant-funded research on cost of production, all that stuff. However, I also was lucky enough this year to do a course with Lisa with the Gardener's Workshop and her whole team, her fabulous team. So it's called Profitable Flower Farming. It's a short course. It's available on demand now. It's just available whenever you want it. We've had hundreds of people take it and really enjoy it. It's really a short course to helping people start to think about the business behind their farm. So not just how to grow the flowers, but how to sell them, how to be strategic, how to grow the business, how to say yes to the things that are right for you and no to the things that are wrong for you, how to do crop planning from a place of really thinking through what flowers you can sell, when, and to who, and how many, so then working backwards with crop planning from that place rather than planting random crops in random amounts. And so I'm here for all that stuff. That's been a wonderful course. It was a wonderful experience creating that, and I love connecting with students who have taken the course or are taking it currently. I'm here to help you with flower farming business strategy. If you're just starting your farm, if you're thinking about how to start your farm, I'm here for you as well. So as we have some questions roll in, I'll give you some thoughts about what I've gathered from all the flower farmers I've been working with recently and what's going on out there in the world of flower farming. So, I have a few thoughts about strategy and about what I've seen with farmers these days. I will circle back to them. So here we go with some questions. I see them coming in. What are the best resources for pricing? I'm in Northwest Washington. Great question. Pricing is sort of, it's a tricky subject, right? We have some people getting into farming and being too nervous to set their prices too high because they're worried that people won't buy the flowers, of course. And we have other people worried about setting their prices too low because they've heard from seasoned growers that we don't want to race to the bottom. We don't want to be setting really low prices because we don't want to undercut other farms. So I totally appreciate that, but it's tricky. And yes, someone's chiming in and saying, yes, it's tricky. I'm new and I'm nervous. So I totally understand you. First of all, I personally have been trying to create more and more resources around pricing. If you don't follow me, I'm at Flower Farming for Profit, and Lisa and Dave Dowling too, and even Ellen, all of the people, and Jenny Love, all the people who work with the Gardener's Workshop have some great things to teach around pricing in the different sectors we all work in. So selling flowers through weddings, selling them retail, selling them wholesale. I'll say when you're just getting started with pricing, it really is helpful to start to look at the prices Look at how much flowers are sold around you. This might be visiting local farms. This might be getting on the weekly price lists of the distributors and wholesalers who might be local to you. Some of you might know who these businesses are right off the bat, and some of you are saying, I have no idea if there's a floral wholesaler near me. So Google is your friend here. Start looking for those companies. Then there are distributors that ship nationwide or even international, like the Floral Source, like Mayesh. You can start setting up an account with them and seeing what a bunch of larkspur is sold for when it's in peak season, seeing what dahlias are sold for when they're in peak season. That is a great baseline to get you started. But I know that you guys know that there's a lot more that goes into pricing. We would love to be getting to the point where we can also think about how much it costs us to grow these flowers, right? This is easier said than done. I'll be the first one to say this as sort of the evangelist for cost of production studies. I will say, I know it's hard when you're just getting started, even 5-10 years into farming, it's hard to really do the work to drill down and see how much it costs you to grow one stem or one bunch. So kind of put that on the shelf for now and know that's something you can start working towards. But until you have a sense of your own pricing, I would really recommend to start getting a sense of the pricing around you. So with pricing, again, it really is helpful to see how much flowers are sold for on a wholesale level in your area. And those of you who are just getting started and thinking, okay, well, I'm not selling wholesale. I'm starting with selling through my farm stand or selling bouquets to my neighbors or doing a subscription service. Why do I need to know wholesale flower prices? I have a couple of answers to that. One is that, sure, I can understand an argument where you might say, you don't totally need to know that. However, I would come back with my real answer, which is that you, by growing and selling flowers, you are part of a larger ecosystem and a larger community and a much, much larger industry. So you growing dahlias and larkspur, those were my examples this morning, on your small farm in Oregon, selling to your neighbors, you might think you have nothing to do with the rest of the flower industry and therefore those prices don't relate to you. But they do. Your customers who come to you to buy flowers, they have bought flowers before from the supermarket for a bouquet to bring home. They have bought flowers for their mother's or their grandmother's funeral from a florist, and they know how much those flowers cost them. They have been to farmers markets. They have seen other flowers in other parts of the industry, and them coming to you, they know that you are a part of this larger industry. So what you do does and should relate to everything else going on in this industry. I hope that makes sense. You are part of a much, much larger chain, which is really wonderful and really gratifying. The other piece of that is that if you're selling retail, meaning, you're selling either straight bunches or likely mixed bouquets to your local community, you absolutely have every opportunity to determine the prices that work for you and that work for your customers. And you can sort of, turn a little bit of a blind eye to the rest of the industry when it comes to wanting to set higher prices, you guys. And this comes from really awesome branding, really awesome marketing, really tapping into the minds of your customers and your ideal customers and what they want from you, what kinds of flowers they love, what kind of aesthetic they appreciate, what kind of experience you create from them in buying your flowers. So you can absolutely take all the pricing data you find, take it with a grain of salt, and try to set your prices higher. I really made a great business after 10 years of already farming. I channeled a lot of my resources into promoting my farm stand and growing my farm stand. And we sold $35 bouquets of 10 stems of mixed flowers, and we marked them up 3 times from what we would sell them wholesale to florists. So these were not big bouquets, and these were $30 to $35. What I'm trying to say is these were expensive bouquets. How did I accomplish that? By sticking it out year after year and keeping my prices high, by really thinking about the price that I wanted each customer to pay, or rather that they called the average customer order, the average customer spend. If I knew I was only going to get 15 customers a day, I knew I wasn't going to make enough money to support myself and my business if I was selling $10 bunches of flowers. I knew I needed to charge $35. And I wanted to scale my farm down. I scaled it down to a 1/4 acre and was able to bring in like 125 grand from that farm stand, buying in 10 grand worth of flowers a year. And then that was only a part of my business. I was still doing weddings and all this other stuff. So all to say that you can absolutely work on your own marketing, your own strategy, your own branding in order to set prices higher, because you're not necessarily growing a commodity. You're growing a value-added product in some respects, flowers that you grow and you design and you curate and you create an amazing customer experience, and you can charge a high price and figure out what your customers are willing to pay and how you can alter and improve your services, your flowers, your designs in order to get that higher price point that you want. All right. So if someone is just starting, how many varieties of flowers might you suggest? I'm where it's hot and thinking of keeping things really simple. Love this question. Some of you know me and you know that I'm going to say you're growing way too much. You're growing way too many kinds of flowers. I see you. I see you all out there. I know you. I know what you're growing. You can build a really amazing business growing 10, 15, 20 varieties of flowers. Some people, I've met a few farmers who start out right from the start and they say, I'm going to grow 5 types of flowers and I'm going to grow them really well. And I'm like, whew, I'm going to follow you wherever you go. You're the smartest farmer I've ever met, because most of us start the other way. We start and grow everything, right? We grow everything that Johnny's has to offer, the Gardener's Workshop has to offer, Farmer Bailey has to offer. We want to grow it all. We want to see it all. We want to test it all. There is a place for testing and experimentation, absolutely. If you're just getting started, of course you can't pick the 5 crops that you know are going to do well for your business and serve your customers and stick to your guns. In fact, you should be more flexible than that. You should be trying things out. But I would aim to try out a few different flowers at a time, and then the flowers that you suspect you are growing pretty efficiently and profitably, the flowers that are in demand from your customers, and the flowers that you like growing. I'm picturing kind of concentric circles of those things, or overlapping circles, Venn diagram, that's what we call it. Those are the flowers you want to specialize in and grow more of. So it might take you a few years to learn that, but I wouldn't recommend trying a little bit of 50 or 100 flowers to see which ones do well and which ones you like, because the truth is you will get overwhelmed. That is way too many flowers to be able to focus on any one flower. You'll never become an expert of any of them. You'll always feel behind. You'll always feel like you're confused, like there's different problems, like you're putting out fires. Like, let me know if this resonates with any of you who are out there today. It's hard. So I would recommend trying 10 crops your first year. You know, that's my advice. All right, we've got one asking best place to learn how to design bouquets. Also, Antonio Valente would tell me that I'm saying bouquet wrong. So those are fighting words, but bouquet, whatever you want to say. I say bouquet. I say it the wrong way. One thing is to really start playing with your flowers and not be afraid of them. This might sound silly to some of you, but I suspect it resonates with others of you, because when I started learning how to design bouquets, they were so awkward in my hands. So awkward, you guys. I didn't know how to hold the stems. I got really, really tense. I would choke them. I would have this choke hold on these bouquets. And the stakes were low. This was like at farm school 15 years ago. We were selling the bouquets at a farm stand, a farm cart. You know, I was paying to be in this program at farm school at UC Santa Cruz. The stakes were low for me. You know, I'm trying to say that, like, I shouldn't have been tense. There was no reason to be tense, but I felt so awkward with these flowers. So one thing is just to really start getting comfortable holding them, playing with them, putting different things together. The next thing I would do is go to YouTube, find some designers that you like, find some examples of them building bouquets or arrangements. Julio was on here earlier, the flower hat. He does all these wonderful tutorials. I wonder how much he still does them, but where you're watching him make centerpieces. I'm sure he has ones making bouquets too. Amy Balsters is another one. These people teach really high level design courses, but they also put out a ton of free content. And I recommend taking advantage of people's free content. I say that about my own courses and stuff too, right? Like this helps you get to know if you like this person and their teaching and their style. But also these people don't mind if you watch their YouTube videos and are learning from them and you don't have the budget to sign up for a course. Like we all understand that. Not everyone needs to take a course for everything. So watch those videos, see what they're doing, and maybe even pause the video and say, okay, today Julio's working with dahlias and lisianthus and snapdragons and eucalyptus. So he has these 4 ingredients. Maybe I don't have those 4 ingredients to work with today on my farm, but I have something similar. I have something that can take the place of eucalyptus. I have zinnias. I can treat those like dahlias. So I'm going to kind of do what he's doing, and I'm going to hold these different ingredients in my hand and see how he holds them. I'm going to watch his hand and watch his mechanics and kind of emulate, copy, right? This is so helpful. Musicians do this. Musicians, as they're learning to, my brother's a professional guitar player. He says there's nothing better for him than listening to like Stevie Wonder and playing along with it and just getting that groove. Oh my God, you guys, I just played air guitar. I'm sorry. Getting into that groove and playing with the greats. So I want you to design with the greats. And then if you want to, I think taking a class, if you find a teacher that you like their bouquets, you like their personality, take a class. You are always going to learn something from a floral design class, whether it's something online, something in person. I took classes at City College back in the day in San Francisco, 1 class actually. I worked for a florist. I took Friday afternoons off of a job running a busy nonprofit farm in order to intern at a florist on Friday afternoons so I could learn what happened in their shop. Really recommend that. All right, let's look at more questions here. All right, we have, I'm burned out on seed starting and seriously considering investing in perennials and shrubs. Yes, can you talk about your experience with that mix? P.S. Shrubs can be tricky, especially from an initial investment perspective. So yes, shrubs, woodies, perennials, wonderful, right? And I know that Dave Dowling has some great information around that with the Gardener's Workshop. You know, shrubs really can be the backbone of a farm, and the goal, or the strategy rather, for those of you just getting started should be really to start planting these early on in small amounts. I had one year, the year I finally decided to go big on peonies, I invested $25,000, which was the most money I had ever saved and I had ever spent on anything. And I spent it on 3,000 peony roots and planted a half acre of peonies. That is abnormal. What most people are doing are putting in 100 peonies a year, right? 100 shrubs a year. So actually, this is a great question for me right now because as I sit here, out my window is my back field. We've lived on this property for 2 years now, and we have yet to put in all the woodies and shrubs I wanted to put in when we first moved here. So this is the year. Later today, in fact, I might be driving to the local wholesale nursery and seeing what they have. Otherwise, I was about to put in an order with Spring Meadows. They're a great place for wholesale shrubs. They come in small, liners or small pots, and those small pots would catch up to gallons or 2 gallons in a year or two. So if you don't have much money to invest in these, absolutely get these small plants. They'll grow so quickly. So what am I putting in? I'm putting in a variety of hydrangeas. Limelight hydrangeas, they're not a secret in the industry by any means. We all know limelight hydrangeas, paniculatas, right? But let me tell you how wonderful they are, you guys. You can harvest them fresh when they're kind of like a little bit of white, a little bit of blush, a little bit of green, but then as they start to fade in the fall, they almost dry on the plant. They don't. You still harvest them into water and everything. They later dry on the plant, but they are such perfect fall tones. And once you start doing design work or weddings or, market bouquets and you want to bring in those fall vibes, but you don't want it to read as like a pumpkin spice latte or a bright pumpkin orange, paniculata hydrangeas and limelights, they have these like fading colors that are kind of like a dusty rose, and they blend so beautifully with deep pinks and maroons and even into orange and those burnt fall tones. So you can't go wrong with limelight hydrangeas. They're just wonderful, 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 you guys. I was just back east and I visited my friend Anna at Little State Flower Company, and seeing her like wall of hydrangeas that lines her farm stand, she's treating it as a privacy screen, as a landmark. People know they've reached her farm stand because they've seen in pictures this beautiful wall of hydrangeas. And of course she cuts and sells the the crap out of them, right? She sells so many of those. They're so beautiful. Another one for me is spirea. Spirea is an amazing crop. When it's in bloom, it is my favorite crop. My favorite phase for spirea is when the buds are about to open, so you can get a trace of the little white flowers, but they are like not quite open yet. And it's just something, it just screams spring and kind of rebirth, right? And they fill up so much beautiful space in bouquets. They're amazing in wedding installations. People love them, people buy them, and then you can cut on the foliage for the rest of the year too. So hydrangeas and spirea are two of my absolute favorite woody crops. I also like to think about, as you start to put your plan into place, you guys, for thinking about your perennials, think about when you need crops to be blooming. One really key time for a lot of us farmers is the time between when our spring crops stop blooming and when our summer crops start blooming. So what would bloom for you in your area from a perennial perspective during that time? Often it might be something like alliums, columbine. So these aren't shrubs, of course, but they are perennials. Alliums, columbine, bearded iris, peonies, geum. Maybe people can drop some more that I'm not thinking of in the comments here, but there's so many crops that can fill a gap for you in your annual production. And I know so many smart farmers, Anna Jane being one of them, who is trying to transition over to perennials and shrubs more and more. The idea being that you can do less work for the same amount of sales, or maybe even more sales, and also you're kind of distinguishing yourself in the market. Because as you all know, what do flower farmers start growing when they just start farming? They start growing zinnias and sunflowers and snapdragons, right? All the crops that are sort of the easiest to grow. And no shame, no shade, that's great, we all did it. But because that's what everyone starts with, it means that the market is flooded with those crops. So the more you can grow these sort of unusual crops with a higher barrier to entry, right? It takes a little bit more money to get them started. It takes more know-how and foresight and wherewithal, all these great words, to get them started. So florists are going to really appreciate that you're growing those rare things, and they're not going to have 50 places they can buy spirea from, like they have 50 places they can buy sunflowers from. So you can become their go-to spirea guy. Someone asked what varieties of spirea I love. I think all flower farmers who have grown spirea will say the same thing, which is there's a few varieties, Van Hootii, I never know how to say that, Van Hoot, I don't know. And wedding, sometimes it's called wedding, what is it, you guys? Bridal veil. And then there's a few varieties, like there's a snow mound, I think it's called, that's very similar. I think it's a little less sprawly, but it's still wonderful. So why not grow both? Sometimes these names are also confused. I've seen certain nurseries kind of like use some of these names interchangeably, which is the same for eucalyptus. It's so frustrating. You're like, which eucalyptus is this? Okay, let's see. Okay, so Wild Goose Flower Farm says, hello, after checking the Mayesh price list for Lysianthus, I couldn't get my local florist to pay for that. Yep, how do we work at a price that works for everyone? Great question. And I'll share here too, we just started cutting our Lysianthus for the year. We just have one bed of it. We used to grow so much of it, but we kind of have shrunken the farm down. And we are selling it for about, on a wholesale level. So this is our price to florists. Right now, September of 2024 in Portland, Oregon, we are selling it for about 7 stems, which often has 15 to 20 flowers, I would guess, open flowers. I forget if we decided on 15 or 20, but it's about 7 stems, and it's $22. This is so much more money than we used to sell it for in California when I started growing it like 10 years ago. Funny enough, I just found a picture this morning of my first field in my first farm of my own, my first B-side field. I've been running another farm, and it was Lysianthus, and it was planted in 2014, and it was root bound, and it was horrible, and I was probably selling it for like $10 a bunch. But it is really hard to find a price that pays your bills and that your customers also want to pay, especially with these crops that are expensive, right? And I know if I were a florist shopping for flowers and I was on a budget and I had $3,000 to spend on the couple whose wedding I was doing this coming Saturday, and I found cheaper Lysianthus and it looked just as good as the local Lysianthus, I might in fact buy it. I try to buy local. I try not to buy imports. I pretty much don't buy imports. But sometimes you only have a certain budget, so you're going to splurge on something like the local garden rose, and you're going to buy Lysianthus from someone who shipped it in from another state. This is just the way it goes because florists are on a budget too, right? So where does that leave us as farmers? I think it's really worthwhile checking in with these florists. This is easier said than done, especially now when you're having this problem right now. But later on, when there's some time, maybe in the winter, sit down with your florists, your customers, and say, you know, what can I grow for you? I'd love to grow more Lysianthus from you. I noticed you didn't buy much of ours this year. Is it a color thing? Is it a variety thing? What could I grow for you? This is the price I need to charge. Or, you know, you can say that or not say that. And I really want to work with you and make sure that our businesses can partner and I can provide you the best local flowers I can. So what can I do to get more of my Lysianthus in your hands? And they might say something like, yeah, well, you're growing the, you know, white and blush Lysianthus, and I can find that from many different sources for $16, and you're trying to sell it for $22. So unfortunately, it's just not a good fit. However, if you would grow some of that brown Lysianthus or the light lavender or the double, I would absolutely pay $22 for that. Another answer, you guys, of course, is to see if there are customers, if there's a better customer for you who will pay this amount of money. But another answer here, another perspective is that perhaps that's not a great crop for you to be growing. And I'm not saying I want you to throw in the towel on a crop that you're having trouble selling right away. Like I would give it another year. But if you're constantly up against this, you feel that you need to charge a certain amount for a certain crop. Let's say it's $22 for Lysianthus. By the way, I know Lysianthus is sold for more than that in other parts of the country, but that's just my example here, $22 for Lysianthus. If you're having trouble selling that again and again and again, and you have decided that for you to come down on price would mean just cutting into your slim profit margin and it's not going to pay the bills for you, that might not be a great crop for you to grow. Maybe you cut down production and you only grow half as much, and that's the amount you know you can sell at that price point. Or maybe you start to realize, ooh, you know, my filler crops are really selling really well. People don't even blink at the prices I'm asking. Those prices pay my bills, provide me with a good profit. So I'm going to lean into filler. And here I am. I didn't think I was going to be a farm that specialized in Queen Anne's lace and larkspur and celosia, but there you have it. Those are the crops that I can produce well and efficiently, and people are paying my prices for again and again and again. So it's really tricky. I think we have to sign off here in a minute, you guys, but it was really great. It's really, really lovely to see you all. I'm so happy to be a part of this community with the Gardener's Workshop, and so just happy and lucky to feel part of their team as I'm out here in Oregon doing my own thing. If you don't follow me, I'm at Flower Farming for profit. I'm trying to make a bunch more resources for you all, trying to be out there and show you all that there's a wonderful community of flower farmers out here, and we're all in it together. Yeah, I just love this community, love being a flower farmer, love working with flower farmers, and I love hearing from you and feeling like I'm out there in your fields with you all, because we're all together in this, absolutely. So I'm gonna sign off, you guys. So good to see you. Stay in touch. Thanks, Lisa, for having me today, and I'll see you all soon. All right, bye.